In the next half hour on Business Live, government set to issue up to $5 billion Eurobond next year to finance maturing debt. We'll hear from the finance minister as he seeks Parliament's approval to spend 27.4 billion cedis for the first quarter of 2021. We will also be engaging economist Peter Quarte for his thoughts on the budget presentation. Plus, today on the Joy Business Van, we visit the entrepreneur redefining beauty with skincare products that are actually edible. The Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, is seeking Parliament's approval, so that story comes much later. This is Business Live. Stay tuned. The Finance Ministry has given the firm assurance that it has instituted measures to check budget overruns in the first quarter of next year. Deputy Minister of Finance, Kweku Kwarteng, has been giving more details about these initiatives in an interview with Joy Business.
On this occasion, there's a certain sense, at least on my part and on the part of those who worked on this expenditure in advance of appropriation, that we're going to have a new Nanado government taking over from the old Nanado government. It still will be the case that there might be changes in positions. Ministers will have to go for vetting. Within that period, you really do not expect that those who will be in charge will be able to spend. So I don't think it's a risk we need to worry about so much. But I think broadly, what the minister was saying was that when you have gone through COVID and you have a program to recover, as part of the recovery, you want to now make sure that you return to the normal deficits you were registering before the pandemic. MDAs would have to play their role in that. And let's not forget that it is also a jailable offense under the PFMA to overspend your budget. It's a jailable offense, and so I'm confident that MDAs would listen to the minister's admonition, and that by the time we actually issue the actual 2017-2021 budget in March 2021, we would have contained our expenditures within the revenue that we're able to get.
But you look at 13 billion revenue, 27, again, another huge deficit as well. Q1 already, it gives us a sense of what we should expect for the year.
I think you should focus more on the year-end deficit. As you would recall, in the first year, in the first quarter after an election year, there are some extraordinary expenditures you need to incur. And therefore, in order to get a balanced picture of what's likely to happen in 2021, you need to look at the year-end projections. We are committed. I'm confident we'll be in power. We're committed to respecting the fiscal path that we have defined, because without it, the recovery will be difficult and Ghanaians will pay the price subsequently. So we're committed to ensuring that the fiscal path is respected. And once that happens, the recovery would follow, and Ghana can safely put COVID behind us and return to the kind of progress we're making, exiting the IMF, improving the macro fiscals that we saw before COVID. We would return to those.
We'll return to the budget a little later and do some more analysis on it. The government has confirmed that it has reached an advanced stage to purchase the 49.5% shares of Airtel in Airtel Tigo temporarily. According to a statement from the Communications Ministry, it has gone far with discussions with Airtel Tigo to transfer Airtel shares to government. The government is optimistic it will conclude the deal shortly when definitive agreements are made between the parties, but it is expected to hand over the shares later. The government assured the protection of the interests of all employees, customers and stakeholders in a continuation of the digital transformation in Ghana. Bharti Airtel yesterday announced in a statement that it will sell its 100% shares of its Ghana business for $25 million to the Ghana government. Now, government says it expects Power Generator Volunteer Authority to increase its export of electricity in the West African sub-region. Sina Messiah Osafumafo explains this is a sure way of saving government the burden of spending $500 million annually for power the nation does not use. The The Energy Ministry has in the past blamed the John Mahama-led administration for signing power purchase agreements that have resulted in the nation having access to more power than is needed. The senior minister has been giving an update on the way forward at a ceremony to launch the 60th anniversary of VRA here in Accra.
We were all witnesses to the 4 years of doomsday prior to the coming into office of the NPP administration. The doomsday brought in its wake panic reaction from the then government, which went into signing a lot of power purchase agreements with independent power producers, IPPs. This resulted in installed capacity of 5,083 megawatts according to the Energy Commission, when Ghana's peak demand for electricity is about 2,700 megawatts. Of the total installed capacity of 2,300 megawatts has been contracted on a take-or-pay basis. 2,300 megawatts has been contracted in agreements on a take-or-pay basis. The net effect is that government has had to pay over $500 million annually for power generation capacity it does not need. $500 for power generation capacity it does not need. It is my hope, and I'm calling on VRA because a special assignment, that the VRA with their rich experience will explore the export market to reduce the burden of this overcapacity for the government. And since they've already attracted the capacity to export to our neighbors, now we have excess capacity. Please increase the export ability of yours to make sure that our take and pay burden is reduced.
Businesses have been admonished to review written contracts prior to the outbreak of COVID-19. This will enable businesses to identify their fundamental obligations under the contracts and juxtapose that with current reality. Contract specialist Twinese Amuzu, who is also a lawyer at GIMPA, believes due to negative impact of the virus, agreement partners need to meet each other halfway. He disclosed this at a meeting of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Tema. There's more in the following report by Kwame Yanka.
Prior to COVID-19 becoming a pandemic, businesses across the world had their own forecasts for 2020. However, after several months into the health crisis, some businesses, home and abroad, are tanking, bearing the brunt of the outbreak. Is there any window of opportunity to salvage contracts signed prior to this? Lawyer Twinese Amuzu is asking businesses to run to Contract Act of Ghana to help salvage impact of COVID-19 on agreements.
So you start by identifying your fundamental obligations under your contract and compare it to what is happening. Then you can conclude that your contract is frustrated or not frustrated. Fortunately, the Contract Act of Ghana has provisions on what parties can benefit from or how the consequences of frustration should be treated. And it is a good idea that companies familiarize themselves with these provisions and take advantage of these provisions. It will be good that after reviewing these positions, businesses are able to get back to the negotiation table with their partners and discuss.
Maritime lawyer and director of Tema Ports, Sandro Poku, wants individuals and companies to understand fine details before signing contracts.
And we assume a lot. We don't read the fine details and then we just sign. And so I think that there needs to be a lot of education. If you're going into business, you should, get a lawyer, you should get people who understand the business, and then they can advise you properly on how to do your documentation before you start paying money to anybody or you start importing. And most of the time, the importers don't know much about the details and how to fill in the documentation. So they rely on the shipping agents or the clearing agents goods. I think for the clearing agents, majority of them understand the documentation that needs to go into it. And so even before you decide to import, you can go to GIF headquarters and let somebody there, be nominated for you to take you through the documentation before you sign anything with the seller, whether in the Far East or Europe, before you sign and bring in your goods.
Meanwhile, Tema Regional Chair of Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Isaac Yusuf Barry, shares how an unexpected occurrence ruined his contract.
I was to deliver some things to Nigeria, but I couldn't make the time because of the truck carrying the goods got spoiled on the way for about 2 weeks, and it became a whole lot of problem for me. I have to be how to even resolve it. It cost me a lot to be able to resolve it. But despite resolving it, I don't think it should be repeated, and I don't think any other business person should fall into that same type of this thing. That's why I'm organizing this meeting to really learn from the resource persons who that came. I think we are witnesses. They gave us some concrete evidences from their own ends, and you could see how we should, the right clauses that we should put in our agreements.
Businesses are expected to take a different approach to contracts after having participated in the event. Kwame Yanke's report for Joy Business.
Now, skincare products that are good enough to eat. Yes, you heard right. Skincare products you can eat. That is a hallmark of Skin Gourmet, founded by Violet Amwabing, who aims to redefine beauty. Today on the Joy Business Van, we are at Achimota, where she makes her formulas.
Hello, my name is Violet and I am the founder and the CEO of Skin Gourmet Limited. What do? So we deal in raw handmade skincare sourced from the wilds of Ghana, and it's so pure you can eat it. So today, Daryl came by and he's going to come check out our studio.
Looks like a museum.
Really? Okay, so basically I have a thing about just letting things look straight and proper so you can actually see the labels properly, and this is how we started in my mother's gym, so I just decided to keep it going.
Actually nice. So tell me more.
Okay, so basically the products that we deal in is we deal in a lot of raw oils, we deal in butters, and then we also deal in scrubs. So if you look here, we have cocoa and coconut butter, and it's great for your skin, but it's also a great vegan substitute in terms of butter. So our products are so pure that you can eat them. All the products here are edible except for black soap, not because it'll kill you, but it's black soap, so we wouldn't recommend that you eat it.
A sore on her lips during Harmattan some 5 years ago got Violet trying a range of creams for remedy, but it was shea butter that would work the magic.
It was just regular shea butter from the market. I put it on my lip and within 3 days it was gone. I mean, no scarring, nothing. So I started wondering, what is the other things that I'm putting in my cream? So I started reading the labels and realizing that half of the stuff I could not pronounce, I didn't know why it was in there. And I realized a lot of things that we're buying is because of the aesthetic value and not actually because it heals us. So I started making my own body butters. At first I thought, I'm probably going to make the best body butter the world has ever seen.
That was the ambitious Violet right there. She began experimenting formulas, and she wanted her products to be different.
As I started researching what it is that Ghana has to offer, I started looking into how Ghanaians make our skincare. And not just Ghanaians from the north, Ghanaians from the central region, from the western region. And there's one thing in common. They all eat their skincare. I mean, what do I mean? Like if you go to the north, right, the shea butter they're using for their skin is the same best shea butter they're using for stews. So I started asking myself, why is it that we've moved away from this principle into a more Western principle where what we're putting on our skin is not edible, when at the same time what you put on your skin is going to end up inside your body. So technically, you're still eating it. So I started doing more research about the different areas. Why do they like to use shea butter? What is it about the nuts? What is it about the seed? What is the healing properties? And that's how we came up with our whole range.
In 2014, Violet made her first product.
Okay, so production is done by hand, and we do everything in small batches. You can ask these ladies. In one day, we can do about how many products in one day?
50 jars.
50 jars, that's one production. But in terms of products, we can even crank out about 5 different products in one day.
Wow.
The key is that our formulations are simple. Nothing complicated, nothing you can't spell, nothing, if it's not needed, we're not putting it in there. So I'm going to show you guys how we make our hibiscus sugar scrub, just because as you saw, we're out of stock. And so we're going to see, and then you're going to taste it.
Nice.
Okay, so ladies, let's do it. So pretty much it's done.
It's done?
Yes, it's done. So I'm gonna let you taste it.
Okay.
He just ate his skincare. Thumbs up. Well done.
That is what makes Skin Gourmet different from other products. They are so organic you can eat them, and the raw materials are sourced right here in Ghana. According to the Ghana Health Service, 50 to 60% of adult Ghanaian women have at one time or the other actively used bleaching agents. That's the extent people go to look beautiful. Violet, with her natural skincare products, wants to redefine beauty.
You have to embrace who you are and make sure that you're healthy. And in being healthy, your true beauty comes out. So we're redefining beauty in the sense that beauty is not something fake. It's not something that you buy. It's who you are and being happy in that. It's not something that you're doing to please others, but in that you yourself will be well, but not just you being well. The environment has to be beautiful because you're beautiful.
Violet has had to grapple with issues of consistent supply of raw materials locally, but that has not stopped her from building a skincare brand that sells locally and internationally. Her business is also environmentally friendly.
And one thing that we tend to forget is the environment. So as much as possible, we like to reduce the waste. If you look at our packaging, we use brown paper bags just because it's better for the environment. When we have to do bigger boxes, we use, for instance, cardboard boxes like this. And then inside, we actually use, this is waste. If you look in there, that bedsit is actually waste that we reuse, and then we send it out to the client to just reduce the impact on the environment. Also, if we have to make bags, we like to use recycled jute bags. These are the bags that the shea nuts come in, and then we have it remade into little bags that's good for packaging. And we like to use a lot of wood.
And what's ahead in the next 5 years?
I don't know. But all I know is that we are aiming for world domination. So watch out for us. We're coming for you. Every country in the world is going to know us. It might not be in 5 years though, but very soon.
All right, and we wish Yummy Skin Gourmet all the very best. We're returning to our earlier story on the budget presentation by the Finance Minister. We're joined again by Zoom by Economist Peter Quartey. Thank you very much once again. Now, I just want us to go straight to your thoughts about the budget presentation by the Minister today.
Okay, good evening, Israel, and good evening to your discerning viewers. The presentation, at least, is better to have more information than nothing. So, for me, it was good. It put our minds at rest. We are a bit optimistic that our growth projections would move from 0.9% to 1.9%. But we've also seen the expenditure and revenue analysis. We are likely to get a budget deficit of 9% by the close of the year. It's still high, though, but given that we are in a pandemic era, that is not too bad. But ideally, I wish it could have been lower. But then the 2021 projections seem a bit cautiously optimistic, in my view. A budget deficit of 8.3% of GDP. And then my concern is the sovereign bond that we're going to raise in 2021. But that is on condition that market conditions are favorable. Otherwise, it might not be too ideal to raise money from the capital markets around this period. You might pay for higher risk and of course, higher interest rates unless conditions improve in 2021.
All right. What do
I might also see that if you look at the expenditure numbers, you will find that interest payments, that is for the first quarter of what has been projected, the 27.4 billion that is being requested. About 7 billion will go into interest payments. That is about 40% of the total amount requested. And has raised more revenue domestically. Otherwise, it becomes a challenge, having paid interest on loans and then paid for compensation of employees. You are hitting about 80% of total revenue, and that is total expenditure, and that is quite worrying.
All right, so I'm asking, what do you make of the 27.4 billion CDC seeking Parliament's approval for?
Well, it's something that is in order. Something that is in order. If you look at how much has been spent from January to September 2020, roughly, it's if you calculate a third of that, that is close to the 27.4 billion. So I think it's a modest request from the finance minister. My only concern is how much we continue to pay in interest on loans, and that is something we ought to be concerned about.
Now, clarify the issue of your concern with the loans again.
Well, my concern is that we are using 40% of this amount, of the 27.4 billion, to service loans, that is interest payments. That is item number 3 on the expenditure list. And that is quite on the high side. If you spend 40% of your appropriation on interest payments, and you also spend 40% on compensation of employees, you'll be left with 20% to finance other things like capital expenditure, social benefits, and then grants to other units of government. So we are not in normal times, and I don't fault the finance minister or anybody for this, but I think as we move along, we ought to think about innovative ways of raising more domestic revenue to finance some of these expenditures. So we rely less on loans, so we don't pay so much on interest.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Peter Quartey, but that's all time will allow us. Thank you very much for also watching. This is Business Live. My name is Israelai. You have a good evening.